Yo, how's it going, guys? Today I got the long-awaited super heavy samurai Zefra overview. I hope that at the end of the video you guys will have a good foundation on how to build and how to play the deck. I'll be sure to go over some sample deck lists, some tech options that you should be playing, some options that you can be playing if you want to, and some options that you should definitely try to avoid. Alright, without further ado, let's hop straight into it. So up here we have what I would deem the core. It's basically the normal Zefra core with the 3 Zefra, 3 Providence, 3 Oracle, and the Zefra Divine Strike, as well as the 9 pillars. I'm running 2 to 3 Zefranu. I think 3 is good if you're also on Denglong, otherwise 2 should be fine for the most part. And as my low scale, I'm running the Zefra Thuban because it is a level 4, which has some nice synergy with the super heavies, letting you make rank 4s or synchro 8s. For the super heavy side, we have 1 copy of the Monk Big Benkei. You can also run 2. This is the Garnet of the deck. You don't really want to see it, so I'm only running 1, but if you do see it, it turns off most of your hands as it's the only target that Wakaushi has. We also have the Wagon, which is probably your worst starter, but it is still full combo by itself. The Soul Piercer, which is not a once per turn, and also full combos by itself. The Wakaushi is the card that actually performs the 1-card combo. Everything else just pretty much searches it. Same for the motorbike that we have. The Solgaia Booster is a nice extender, and the Scales is a brick that we're running in order to gain even more advantage. Same for the Soul Peacemaker. For the extra deck core, we're running the Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon and the Baron. You use the Axel Synchro to revive your bike, and that makes a Baron very early on in your combos before you actually commit too much. That helps you play around stuff like Nibiru or people holding hand traps. And then we're running 2 of the Link 1. If you really want to, you can probably get away with just running 1 of them, but 2 of them feels a lot safer and gives you some better follow-up as well. Here's just another list of the starters that we have. Wakaushi is the 1 card, and the other ones all search for it. And engine requirements here, the Big Benkei as our low scale is the Garnet. Scales and the Soul Peacemaker are bricks. The Soul Gaia Booster as well, but it actually works as a decent extender. Opening Soul Peacemaker plus Scales or Booster actually also combos. It's just not as full, but at least you still get to build a board. And we have the Stealthy here. This is optional. If you're going for Denglong, this helps you make it very early on, which is very nice as well, and gets you access to that without having to run through something like Auroradon or add a Magician's Package or something. So also very nice inclusion. I run it in my list, but you don't have to. Then some possible extra deck and tech options we have here. So you pretty much have to run the Baron and the Axel Synchro, but some other synchro options you could be going for are the Borreload Savage and the Denglong, which just gives massive advantage. We also have things like the Axel Synchro, the Chao Feng, and the Sinister Sovereign Xixing Longyuan. These are more so cards that you'll be running with an Auroradon build, which funnily enough actually isn't that bad anymore. I don't think it's quite as good as it was back when Halka-Fibrax was legal. However, all the super heavies are machines, and there's some lines that just naturally go into Auroradon at some point to get even more advantage. So you could also run through the Cliffort Genius to search for your Therion King Regulus to get another negate, and then just link off the Genius plus any super heavy to go into the Auroradon. We also have the Barricade Board Blocker as the mainstay of making any non-machines into a Link 2 machine to get there as well. I personally think the best payoff you could go for is just Scythe locking and protecting that with negates. Very, very easy to achieve, and the different Zefra variants all have different ways of actually achieving that. You can of course always go for Verte for DPE in order to pop the scythe. Gives you some nice grind as well. But this has the same issue as Auroradon in the sense that you're running a lot of bricks. So I prefer a more toolboxy approach where we're running more rank 4s like the Baguska as a good backup plan. We have the Abyss Dweller, which hurts a lot of decks actually currently in the format by just turning off effects in the graveyard. Then we have the Gallant Granite, which can search for Zefrath in our combos, because Zefrath is actually a rock monster, believe it or not. So that can get us to our scale if we don't want to rescale Wakaushi, or if we don't have access to it, or just you want to search follow-up if you have bodies left over or something. It's also very nice. Of course, we're running the Zeus just to clear boards, so good. Same for Underworld Goddess, just to clear big boss monsters we need to get rid of. And then we have the usual suspects as well, the Appaloosa for just free negates mid-combo at some point, and the Access Code Talker to help push for lethal. We don't actually have a Link 3 here because I'm not running IP or Unicorn, which of course are also viable options. I just forgot to put them in this list. We have the Electromite because it's just really good card. This really helps if you open stuff that isn't super heavy, or if you are on turn 3. It's usually very easy to go into that and then generate some advantage, link climb, go into access code, and just win off that. The Sprite Elf I have in here, this helps with the Scythe lock. You'll see later when I get to the combos, but that's pretty much most of the stuff I could think of right here. An example Decklist right here. This is the one that I'm running currently. I'm only on one of the Monk Big Benkei because I don't want to see it. And then we also have the Stealthy here to make Denglong early. Looking at the combos, we have at the top, you can see the hand that I started with. Of course, this is assuming we're not interrupted, but we would be using the crossbow here just as the one card for the full combo. We do have the Stealthy in hand already, so that means we get a search for something else that we want. So what does this end board entail here? So we have an Omni Negate from the Boral Savage Dragon. The 2 set cards are also the Omni Negates, they're the counter traps. And you can see we have the artifact Scythe in the graveyard. That's because we are popping it with Baron to clear up our back row, since we have 2 scales here and we have the target for Boral. And then we have the 2 counter traps. Of course, if you have another way of popping the Scythe during her opponent's turn, you can just pop the Link monster that's attached to the Boral Savage, and it will not lose its negates, it will just lose the additional attack. So what would happen here is during our opponent's standby phase, we would use the Baron's standby phase effect to tag out for the artifact Scythe, and that will trigger the Scythe to lock your opponent out of the extra deck while still leaving 3 Omni Negates on the board. The really cool part about doing it like this is that we make the Baron early anyways to insulate our combos, and if it's still live, it also beats an infinite impermanent on the Baron itself, or a called by on the Scythe, and when we bring back the Scythe, we can put it into the Elf's zone to play around Imperm again. So very cool. And then we still have 3 Omni Negates left over. I'll get to combos at the end of the video, so be sure to stick around for those. I'll put them in the timestamps in the description, or do like the video chapter thing so you can just jump to it if you're looking for it for reference. We also have the Tellarknights variation. I think this is really interesting. This is what I'm currently enjoying the most right now, playing it on Master Duel. This plays a lot more like the Zefra Tellarknights, and you can tell we aren't actually running the crossbow, which is limited in the OCG, I believe, because it is very powerful. Not once per turn, you get a lot of searches, but that's not what we're going for in this deck. We also have a very tight extra deck actually, so instead of running some interesting payoffs here, the point here is mainly using the super heavies to either get into a rank 4 for free, which will be your Caduceus, and then you can just extend from there as much as you want. Or if you also draw the Oracle of Zefra, or just access to it, That's actually really cool because that lets you search for any monster in your deck. You'll see in the combo section, but we'll be abusing the Synchro and the Exceed effect of Oracle of Zefra, where we will summon the Wakaushi, then we will pen summon out the Zefra and 2 more level 4s, so our 5th summon will be Baron to stack our payload on top of the deck, and then we will go straight into our Caduceus using the Zefra Thuban, and that will let us use Oracle to draw a card and discard a card. And the stuff you have in the side deck here, those are like possible payoffs we could be running. I have the Spell Canceller in the main deck, that's what I'm running right now. You could also be running the Therion King Regulus, that one does not require a normal summon. The Spell Canceller can use a normal summon. You don't always need your normal summon these combos, but sometimes you do. So the line I'm going for actually stacks it to the top of the deck and then draws it and discards it. So we're basically just milling it to the graveyard, and then we'll be reviving it with Dugaras at the end of the combo. And this works off 2 cards if you're running the Isolde bricks. I'm currently testing without because I don't really like bricks. I think it can really hurt the decks a lot. So maybe we would also run a Regulus instead, because that just special summons itself. Some other options if you want to kind of high roll it, or some that are really funny, are the Wicked Avatar, which requires 3 tributes, but you can tribute over like Belteros and some other useless bodies, and this locks your opponent out of activating spell or trap cards for 2 entire turns. So not just your turn, their turn, but 2 of their turns and 2 of your turns. So that's pretty crazy. It's pretty funny, but not every hand can make it, so I'm not running it right now. Plasma special summons itself by tributing 3 monsters, which is a bit more accessible since you don't need your normal summon for it, but it still requires a ton of bodies. Then we have the Barrier Statue of the Heavens, which you can also summon out with the Starring Knight actually, but this requires it to be in hand. The Dugaras line gets the guy from a graveyard, so you don't need anything in your hand because you can just pitch the target. This does lose your next main phase 1, so be sure to summon everything in attack position. So when you go straight to battle phase after effectively skipping the turn, you just kill him right off the bat when you start off in your battle phase after the standby phase. Of course, you can still turn skip with this build. There's some hands that let you make a Baron in the extra monster zone very early, and that gives you protection on your turn skip line. And then you can just go for lethal next turn with your nice follow-up. Protos, of course, also good option here to have. And we have the artifact Durandal again for the Droll hand loop combo, which is a lot more searchable in this variant because we do have good access to a Synchro to stack on top of the deck, so we can actually use the Oracle of Zefra to search for it. So that's very cool. Example end board would be off of the starting hand. We get to make this board, which is pretty cool. We have the Baron for an Omni Negate. The Spell Canceller turns off all spell cards, so there's no Dark Ruler, there's no droplets, there's especially no Super Poly, which is relevant because we're ending on Appaloosa, and Baron plus Apple on an end board is usually not a good idea because Super Poly will be eating you alive. The set cards are the Zefra Divine Strike for another Omni Negate, and the other one is the Artifact Scythe. What our game plan here is we'll be using the Ptolemaeus to tag out into the Pleiades, which will give you a quick effect bounce of any card. You can just return 1 card on the field back to the hand, and then that will summon the Alteran in the graveyard in our draw phase, in their draw phase, to pop the Scythe and lock them out of the extra deck. So that's pretty nice. We added the Zefra Thuban off of Isolde, just to have a scale for next turn, since the Zefrath is protected from destruction because of a Providence in graveyard. And then we will have scales next turn again, and we just get to pop off. We already have Zefra Thuban in the extra deck here, and we have a Wakaushi there too, I believe. And that way we can just get right back into our full combo, recur everything, and beat them over the head with it. I'll be showing the combo off at the end as well. I feel like showing off the FTK. I don't know if adding Zefras to it actually adds much value. I haven't really tested this very much. I just feel the need to also share this as an option currently. I'm keeping the Divine Strike here and all the non-engine just to have a backup plan in case something goes wrong. But pretty much this is what the FTK will end on. This works off any one super heavy starter, so the Zefras don't necessarily add much value there, more as like a backup plan, I guess. Or if you just really want to play them. What this does is you summon this guy in the middle off of Auroradon, and then you boost its level with the Galaxy cards, and then you use Dark Strike Fighter to tribute it, and since it's level 43, you'll burn for 43 times 200 is 8600 life points, and they die instantly. And we even have the Baron made early, again, to protect ourselves from Nibiru or something. So, getting to some extra options we could be doing, I'll start off with what not to run. Now, of course, you do want to run the Wakaushi, but I wanted to highlight its effect here. If you have no spells or traps in your graveyard, that's the first condition. You can place one Superheavy Samurai Pendulum monster from your deck, except Wakaushi, in your other Pendulum zone. That's the second condition, so it has to be free as well. Then you can special summon this card. So we already need to have no spells or traps in our graveyard, and we need to have a second free Pendulum zone. So first of all, this means don't run Call by the Grave. This deck loses very hard to draw, so it's very painful to not have this. But on the one hand, we're running 60 cards, so it's not that likely to see this. And if you do Call by the Droll, you pretty much can't extend anyways, because all of your cards are kind of dead. What else not to run, which is also very painful for us, is the Endymion and the Mythical Beast stuff. This stuff is really good in normal Zefra builds, or well, normal, I guess, maybe this is the new normal. It's very good in Zefra builds that don't run super heavy samurais, but the problem is you have your servant in the scale, which will clog that up, so Wakaushi's kind of turned off, and you want to accrue spell counters, which happens by activating spells. However, if we activate spells, we turn off our super heavies, so there's some massive anti-synergy here. Cerberus loses to Ash anyways, but that becomes a lot worse now that we need to have our other zone free for Wakaushi. Otherwise, there's still plays you can make in other Zefra variants. So unfortunately, we'll have to be cutting all of these cards. Some things we could consider are a small Magician's package, of course with 3 of each of the spell. Now you might be thinking, wait, I thought you said spell cards are bad because they're in the graveyard and they turn off our engine. The point of this would be that you would first go through all your super heavy stuff, and maybe that eats disruptions, or you get the combo off anyways, and then you use this just for more payoff or more extension, as well as just having these as an option to draw when you open Zefra stuff, but no super heavy stuff. So pretty much you would be using the Harmonizing Magician to either summon out the 5 rainbow to make Denglong, or the Oath Dragon to make Baron, and then you have the Purple Poison as a going second option and a low scale, and the Celestial is just the best high scale you have. Pen Call, of course, being really nutty, and Duelist Alliance searching for it. However, I didn't really like this as much. You don't always really want to see these cards, and the super heavies already do what these cards do, but just better. So I don't know how I feel about running this. Some other considerations would be Dark Worm. Dark Worm is kind of cool because it's a free level 4 body and you get access to a low scale, which is something that the deck kind of has an issue with, since the Wakaushi is a high scale and Zefrath will in almost every case also be your high scale. So you're only really running one low scale. You'll probably access it off Wakaushi anyways, but if you don't get there, you kind of have a problem. So this gets you there, that's really nice. Unfortunately, Dragon Shrine does put a spell in graveyard, so this is only okay to draw, really, if you don't open any of the super heavy stuff, which is pretty much the niche that this is trying to fill. So this helps you play with just Zefra stuff in hand and no super heavies. That's why we're running the Remus and the Dragon Ravine potentially, since those cards will get you the Dark Worm to the graveyard without putting a spell in the graveyard, since this is a field spell. The problem is these cards don't really do much by themselves otherwise, and I guess you can run a Destrudo or something, maybe play off of that. However, this does cost another discard. Your Super Heavy Samurai Link one also costs a discard. So you might be thinking, oh, then we can just run 3 Dark Worm and pitch those, but then it doesn't come back because you're controlling monsters. So it's very iffy. There might be some brew that can utilize this, but I think maybe now is not the time for it. You can also consider some Symphonic Warriors. These are especially nice if you're running an Auroradon variant, since they do get you there very nicely. Yeah, it's just the normal stuff. You have the rocks as a Synchro 7, and then you just run one of the guys that I've grouped at the bottom, maybe as your payoff. What you could also consider is Speedroid Engine. They're all machines, and they make the Rubber Band Shooter. You could also consider running these together with the Symphonics as well if you wanted to. Also very good in an Auroradon variant. Increases your ceiling by a bit because you do get to summon out some tuners for free, and you can actually use the rocks and banish that, and then you can summon it back again. So I think that's pretty cool. So filling out the deck, right? If you want to put in some more stuff, you could of course have to consider the Master Duel attacks. That's Maxi, Ash Blossom, and unfortunately for us, no Call By or Crossout. And I'm filling this out with hand traps as equalizers. So pretty much, what do you lose to? You lose to going second and your opponent is playing the same deck, or like any of the combo decks, right? Manadium, just Super Heavies, General, some other combo deck. You can't really break the board as efficiently in Engine, so we're using Equalizer hand traps, blowout cards to just end their turn on the spot. Stuff like Nib, Droll, Maxi. Those cards really put in some massive work. Something like Shifter could also work, but not in our deck, unfortunately. But that's what I'm doing. That's what's in my lists. And of course, you can splash in any tech options, engines, or payoffs that you want. At the end of the day, you probably want to have fun. And that's what these do. So now I'll be going through some combos for you guys. Alright guys, so here I'll be showing off the 1-card combo. We're going to do this without disruption, just to show you guys what the normal 1-card combo will end on. So going ahead here, we're going to use the motorbike to search for the Wakaushi. Going to scale it, use its effect. Place the Monk Big Benkei into the scale, and now we're going to use the Big Benkei to search for our crossbow here. Now we're going to normal summon the crossbow, making the link, and this one has a diagonal down left link arrow. And in order to use its effect to revive stuff, you have to actually summon to that zone. So make sure you don't clog that zone up. If you accidentally summon the Wakaushi to the middle zone or something, you can always put the Scarecrow in the left extra monster zone. And we're going to use the linked off crossbow here to search for the Stealthy. This is our level 1. It's just a free special summon if you have no spell traps in grave. And I did summon it to the zone, but we're synchroing it off right away for Denglong. And this is our 5th summon if you count. We had the Wakaushi as 1, then the Soul Piercer as 2, the Link as 3, Stealthy is 4, and Denglong is 5. So if they nib us here, we still get to float with this, and we have whatever else we have in hand to continue playing the game. So we have a Zefra here, plus the Big Benkei. That still gets us some synchro summoning, some pendulum summoning. But if they don't, we're going to just keep going. And we're going to use all these effects. We're going to make sure to use the Denglong on Chainlink 1 and the Wakaushi on Chainlink 2, since this can't get hand trap realistically unless they, I don't know, gamma us for some reason, but that's just not the target most of the time. And we're going to access our 9 pillars for our first Omni Negate. Next, we're going to use the Scarecrow to just pitch any monster from our hand and get back the Soul Piercer. Now this is level 4, and we're going to use the Denglong to send Zefranio to make it level 6, and this goes straight into Baron. So now we're safe from everything, and we're still going to Chainlink 1 the Denglong, and Chainlink 2 the Crossbow to search the Soul Peacemaker, and to summon out Zefranio. Now we can't link off the Scarecrow since it can't be used as link material, so we're going to equip it with the Soul Peacemaker, and that's going to attribute it off for our scales. Now this is kind of confusing since we do have pendulum scales, but this guy's name is just scales. This guy revives a Super Heavy Samurai when it's summoned, so we're gonna revive the Soul Piercer since this one is the one that's not once per turn, and it keeps getting us more and more advantage. Now we're gonna link off our Zefra, important, and the scales, also important, because the scales, when it goes to the graveyard from the field, will get us another search, and we want to have the Zefra in the extra deck so we can pendulum summon it and use its effect to add the other counter trap. So we're gonna make the Dagda here, because this is a Scythe build. We're gonna use the search here for the wagon. This guy gets us another search if it changes its position from defense to attack. And on summon, you can change its battle position to defense, and that lets you chain block stuff. So right here, you can see I summoned out the Zefra and the wagon from hand, and we're going to chain block it here. And then we're going to, of course, use our Dagda to set the Scythe. I'm going to search for our Divine Strike, turn this guy into his attack position. Now we get the Soul Gaia booster, just summon itself out right here. Now, since we do have just enough of the bodies and everything, what you can do here is you make the Gallant Granite, and that searches you another copy of Zefra. Now, we already had it, so I just searched the bureau because why not? We have the bodies left over. That's like the backup search. But this would give us a Zefra for next turn. And if we opened any additional Super Heavy Samurai combo piece, we could loop the crossbow to search for another Wakaushi, and that way we have both scales already for the crackback, as you saw in the example end board I posted before. Now we're going to link these two off for Elf, since Dagda is a link 2, and the other one is an Exceed that we're not going to use for synchro summoning anymore. And the Elf here is actually going to revive our bike, which is a level 2. That gets to that's a tuner, and it gets to level modulate by increasing the level of a machine monster you control by 2. So that means we get to actually keep the Zefra on board by doubling our level here and going into the Boral Savage off of that. Now the Baron's going to pop the Scythe to make space here, and we're going to bring it back in the next turn. So here in the standby phase, we're going to use the effect, summon out the Scythe into the zone that the Elf points to, and that is going to lock them out of the extra deck, and it's going to leave us on 1, 2, 3 Omni Negates as well. Plus we have the Zefra in hand, and anything else that we have is probably going to be non-engine. It's going to be hand traps to help us disrupt our opponent or just end their turn. Or if it was more engine, we could have extended even further to get an even stronger end board. Alright, so here I'll be showing off the Super Heavy Samurai Zefra Tellarknights variant 2-card combo. So we're going to be using only the Oracle and the Wakaushi. The motorbike just adds Wakaushi, so it doesn't really matter. And this technically comes up in the combo, but we don't actually need it here, so I'm just going to keep it in my hand the entire time and ignore it. We're only going to be using Oracle and Wakaushi. This means we don't actually use any Tellarknights to get into Tellarknights combo, which I think is super cool because the Zefras and the Super Heavies each by themselves actually get you into the combo. So I'm going to let this run here. I'm going to do the normal stuff first, Wakaushi for the Monk. And now the Monk's going to search for the Soul Gaia here. I'm going to summon this out. And now we've used all of our Super Heavy effects that require us to have our graveyard clear of spell traps. So now we're going to start off with the Zefra stuff. If we had Providence, that's when we'd use it here as well. It's important that you access the Oracle, the Zefra, and the Zefra and the Zefra Thuban as part of this combo. It doesn't really matter how you get there specifically, off of which 2 cards. It also doesn't matter if we start with the motorbike or the Wakaushi. They all get there at the end. So we're going to use the Zefra here to get us into the Zefra. Now we're going to pendulum summon only this one, and this one gets us to Zefra Providence. Now we're going to use the Providence here, since we don't need the Super Heavy effects anymore. So now this is in the graveyard, and we're going to search for the Zefra Thuban. Now we go straight into Baron here on our 4th summon, and we're going to stack our payoff to the top, which is a spell canceller here. Now we normal summon the Zefra Thuban and overlay into the Caduceus. And now since Zefra Thubin is Zefra, we get to trigger Oracle again for the Exceed effect. So we're going to draw a card and then discard one. Since I'm running Dugaras to get Spell Canceller into rotation, I'm just going to pitch the Spell Canceller. Otherwise, you would have to pitch some other monster in your hand, right? Like a hand trap or an extra engine piece, something that's left over that you don't need. So if you're running something like Protos, right? I'm going to pitch the Spell Canceller here. The reason I like this line is since you saw we had to commit our normal summon in the 2-card combo, so we can still get our Spell Canceller into rotation the way I'm doing this. So next we're going to use the Caduceus here to banish the Lyran for our continuous spell. Use that to bring back the Zefra Thubin. It's important that you detach the Thubin from the Caduceus when you're using its effect, so we can actually bring it back here. Now we're going to rank up into M7, use the continuous spell to rank down into Deltaros, so we can go into Isolde, chainlink 1 Deltaros, chainlink 2 Isolde. Isolde is just going to add us the Thubin as follow-up, since the Zefrath is protected from destruction due to our Zefra Providence in the graveyard. So we could just go full combo again by sending the Zefra Core. Next turn, after we scale the Thubin, if only our Zefrath survives, so we have good follow-up already. We're going to bring out the Altera, of course, off the Deltaros, because it's not a once per turn, so we can loop it here. We're going to use Isolde to access Renaud and Living Fossil. Just grab that right back to our hand. And now we're going to link off the Isolde, our Renaud, and our Deltaros, since they can't be used for any other Exceed shenanigans, and we're going to just make an Appaloosa for 3 right here. Deltaros gets a trigger again. This time it's going to be Deneb to add the Unuk to our hand. Unuk is our access to Alteran, which is our pop when it gets reborn. And you might think, oh no, we have no normal summon, but that's where the Gaga Magician comes in, bringing back the Deltaros and linking off into Dagda. And this summons out the Vega now, which gets a special Tellar from hand. And we're going to trigger the Dagda here. Just be sure to trigger it at some point. You can trigger it off the Vega too, it doesn't matter. We're going to set the Scythe here, and we're going to mill our Alteran to the graveyard, go into Ptolemaeus, bring back the Alteran, and it's important that you bring this back when you control a light or dark Exceed monster. So in this case it's Ptolemaeus, because we are going to need to pop our Dagda that we've already used for space. You'll see on the final end board why. Now we're going to Living Fossil here, go into Dugaras, bring back our Spell Canceller. It's important that you use the Living Fossil before you use Dugaras to bring back the Spell Canceller, because this turns off all our spells as well, as you can see right here. And now we're going to use Baron to pop the spent Dugaras to clear up space on our board. Now, do note that using Dugaras to revive will skip your next main phase 1, so we're going to have to summon everything in attack position from here on out, including the Baron, of course. You can only summon defense off of Dugaras, and this one's going to tag out after using its end phase effect to attach a material. In the draw phase, we're going to use its effect, rank up into the Pleiades, again in attack position. This gives us spot removal in the form of a quick effect bounce back to the hand. And this also triggers the Alteran, again in attack position, to pop the Scythe, which will summon in attack position to lock our opponent out of the extra deck. So what have we done here? We have locked our opponent out of the extra deck, we've locked our opponent out of spell cards, we have 3 monster negates, 1 Omni negate, and we have a quick effect spot removal, plus we have the follow-up here, and 3 cards extra left in our hand. Alright, so here I'll be showing off the 3-card combo. This is going to be any Super Heavy Samurai starter, and then access to Zefrath and Providence, Oracle, Thubin, any 2 of those basically. So the way this works is we don't need our normal summon, because we will get to actually pen summon out the Zefra Thubin. This is obviously a better combo and enables some other payoffs and some other lines. And it also lets you search for Divine Strike. So I'll get rolling here. We're going to lead with the Motorbike to search for Wakaushi, use that to put our Monk in scale, and summon ourselves out. Now, our only search target here is unfortunately the Soul Gaia booster, so we're not going to be summoning this out, but don't worry, we can just still pen summon it out. It doesn't matter at all, it doesn't make a difference. This helps play around some hand traps or your opponent holding some hand traps slightly better if you do summon this out here, but it really doesn't matter. So now that we've resolved all of our super heavy effects we need to, because we're pen summoning this out, we now get to go into our Zefra stuff by using the Providence here. Search for the Oracle for the Thuban. And now we scale Zefra to send Zefranu. And now we're going to pen summon out 3. So this is basically the exact same board state as last time here. We do have our Zefranu, we have our Thuban, we have our Wakaushi, and we have the booster on field. So nothing much really changes here. However, we get to use Zefranu now for the counter trap search, since we have that left over. Now we're going to do the same Oracle combo here to access our payoff. Of course, if you're running something else, you might need to discard something else. If you need to summon this out, if you need your normal summon for it, this combo works for that because you do have a normal summon left over. We're not going to normal summon at all during this combo, so that's really cool. Yeah, the rest of the combo is basically just the same. Plus we have the counter trap here going to rank up and rank back down again, go into the Isolde, chain block the Deltaros again because it's more important. This gets us our follow-up again, and it's going to be Altair again to revive the Deltaros. Going to go grab our Living Fossil and our Renaud, linking these 3 off again for the Apo, and triggering Deltaros for Deneb. And you can normal summon the Unuk if something goes wrong here as well. We're going to get back out our Deltaros off the Gaga Magician. Vega summons out the Unuk for us regardless, triggering the Dagda here. And this gets to send the Alteran. So we get to make Ptolemaeus, bring this thing back. Of course, you have to pop the Dagda again. Living Fossil gets any level 4 body, it doesn't matter. Won't get banished because it gets overlaid. And Dugaris gets us the Spell Canceller, Baron pops it. And we are going to set our counter trap in addition here. This plays out the exact same, where we will use the Ptolemaeus end phase effect to attach material. And then in the next draw phase, we'll be tagging out for Pleiades, and that will summon out our Alteran to pop the Scythe, to summon that out. Again, everything in attack position. And we also have a counter trap to back it up on top of our normal Omni and our 3 monster negates, turning off all spell cards and turning off the extra deck, and having our quick effect bounce. So while I'm at it, I might as well show off the FTK. This just uses the super heavies, so it's just a standard super heavy FTK line. I'll just be showing it off here anyways, even though it doesn't really do any Zefra stuff. This is going to be more towards the normal build than the Tellarknights build, where we go into the link and we're going to loop the crossbow a whole bunch. Gonna make an early Baron here. Now we're gonna use the Soul Peacemaker for the scales again. That's gonna grab back our crossbow, and now we go into Clifford Genius. Now we add the motorbike, this is important, and the wagon, so we get to pen summon 2 to add the Regulus. And if we're interrupted at any point here, Regulus will give us another negate. Otherwise, we're just going to make our Galaxy Photon Dragon here. And this one gets us into our Galaxy Queen's Light, where the levels of all other face-up monsters become one of our targeted monsters. That's important for the FTK. And now Baron pops this for space, because it's not a machine. So we're going to link off the Regulus for Auroradon. Otherwise, our zones are full. It's important that we have the motorbike here as our level 2. Which we'll see in a second, because now we are going to summon out not the O-Lion, but the Mecha Phantom Beast Raiten. And this guy's level gets increased by the total levels of all Mecha Phantom Beast tokens you control, and you can, non-once per turn, discard a card to special summon one of those tokens. So you can just discard as much as you want in order to summon more and more tokens. However, this does lock you into using only Mecha Phantom Beast monsters as materials for extra deck summons. So before we use this effect, we're going to use the motorbike to increase our level and synchro it off with one of the tokens for the Dark Strike Fighter. Now we're just going to discard any 2 cards from our hand to get as many tokens as possible onto the field. And now when we use Galaxy Queen's Light to target the Raiten, it will make all of our monsters a level 13. And that means these 3 tokens will also be level 13s. And that's going to end on this increasing this level all the way to level 43 now. And now the Dark Strike Fighter can tribute a monster to inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's level times 200. Level on the field, which is 43. So this is going to burn for 8600, going for lethal. I don't know why they get more phases after their life points are dead. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Really helps the channel out. If you want to see me go through just a bunch of test hands, just play those out, let me know down in the comments below. Maybe I'll make a long video on it. Maybe I'll just stream it. And then you guys can watch the VOD if you want to. Let me know what you think. And if you have any questions, any more ideas for this, if you have any feedback on the video, I'd love to hear it as well. So thanks a ton for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.